member states that do not comply with the resolution. And the delegate of Russia believes that another resolution that is written in more detail needs to be looked at, and urges all other member states to either abstain or vote against this resolution.
Thank you, Delegate. Has the delegate opened themselves up to any and all points of information?
The delegate is not open to any points of information.
Does the delegate yield the floor to the chair?
The delegate yields the floor to the chair.
Are there any other delegates wishing to speak against this resolution? The delegate of Portugal, you've been recognized.
The delegate of Portugal will have to agree with Russia because although the topic is important and must be acknowledged, the resolution does not give enough information about how they will be getting the artifacts and how, if one doesn't want to give back artifacts, how there would be punishments. Therefore, the delegate of Portugal believes that this resolution should not pass. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any and all points of information?
The delegate is not open to any points of information.
Does the delegate yield the floor to the chair?
Yes, the delegate yields the floor to the chair.
Isabel, do we have any amendments?
Motion to move to previous question.
Denied.
No, nothing so far.
No amendments. I think.
Oh, wait, I just got one.
Wanted to send in one.
Yeah, I just got one.
Yeah.
From the delegate of India. Okay, the delegate of India added a new clause, wishes to add a new clause. Let me, I can get it to be suggested, sorry. Oh, that's the link. Thank you, delegate.
Does the delegate of India, you've been recognized to present your amendment.
My gosh, the amendment is a new clause that demands a formal apology for the actions of the country that has wrongfully obtained the artifact in question. I think it's obtained, sorry.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any and all points? Sorry, does the delegate wish to speak for their amendment?
Yes. The delegate feels that as countries should not be forced by the UN to return these artifacts, as it is their rightful place to be in their origin country. And so it's not a kindness that these countries are returning these artifacts. It's a necessity. And if any country abstains from doing such, there should be a formal apology when that artifact is finally returned by the UN's enforced policies.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any and all points of information?
Any and all.
The delegate has opened themselves up to any and all points of information. If there are any on the floor at this time, please raise your placards now. The delegates of Russia and Portugal in that order, please.
The delegate of Russia believes that this amendment should be voted for, although he does believe that this, sorry, I'm speaking against it. The delegate of Russia would like to ask the delegate of India as to how she believes that this amendment would benefit the entire resolution as a whole, rather than just voting against it.
The delegate believes that, yes, this resolution is not detailed enough to aid this topic. However, the delegate is just trying to create a more detailed resolution, taking action towards helping this resolution rather than simply just voting against it.
Right to reply.
Granted.
The delegate of Russia would like to ask the delegate of India if she believes that that the delegation of India could provide a better, more detailed resolution.
Yes, the delegate of India has formulated a more detailed resolution.
Thank you, the delegate of Russia. The delegate of Portugal.
Does the delegate not believe that there should be harsher punishments, seeing as the delegate thinks it's a necessity to return the artifacts?
Yes, the delegate strongly believes that that is the case. The delegate simply made an amendment as to benefit this resolution and make it more detailed rather than just throwing it away and voting against it. But the delegate does believe that for this resolution to pass, it must be made quite a bit more detailed.
Right of reply.
Granted.
If the delegate believes it should be more detailed, wouldn't it make sense to have a list of punishments instead of just a formal apology?
Yes, the delegate agrees with the delegate of Portugal and hopes that possibly the delegate of Portugal could make amendments in which some of those punishments are outlined.
Thank you, the delegate of Portugal. Does the delegate of India yield the floor to the chair?
The delegate yields the floor to the chair.
We will now move on to speaking for this amendment. If there are any delegates wishing to speak for this amendment, please raise your placards now.
Of Canada understands that this amendment may not have been as detailed as it should have been. However, the delegation of Canada believes that no,
Does the
delegate
delegate
does not open any points of information.
Does the delegate of Canada yield the floor to the chair?
Yes, the delegate of Canada yields the floor to the chair.
Are there any more delegates wishing? If there are any more delegates wishing to speak for this resolution,
Motion to move to previous question.
Someone needs to second it.
Seconded.
And
Granted. We will now move on to speaking against this amendment. If there are any delegates on the floor at this time, please raise your placards now. The delegate of Russia, you've been recognized.
The delegate of Russia would like to remind every single delegate in the House that no amount of amendments possibly made to this resolution can fix it to the point where this resolution will be passed, and thus urges everyone again to please vote against this amendment and later against this entire resolution or abstain from voting.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any and all points of information?
Any and all.
The delegate has opened himself up to any and all points of information. If there are any on the floor at this time, please raise your placards now. The delegate of Canada, the delegate of Canada.
the delegate of Canada wants to ask the delegate of Russia why, instead of disputing the entire resolution, he believes it to be unfixable.
The delegate of Russia would like to remind the delegate of Canada that although the delegate of Russia was never colonized in the past or the delegate of Russia would like to remind the delegate of Canada that although the delegate that Russia has never been colonized, neither has Canada, and that Canada does not have a full knowledge of artifacts being removed from their country, as they are still part of the British Commonwealth and thus see the British Queen as their monarch.
The delegate of Russia, it is a wrong statement to say that Canada has not been colonized before. Could the delegate of Russia restate their answer considering this fact, please?
The delegate apologizes to the chair. May the delegate of Canada please repeat her question?
Can the delegate of Canada please repeat their question?
The delegate of Canada wants to ask the delegate of Russia why they believe this resolution to be unfixable and why they don't add an extra amendment to fix the resolution based on consequences if that was the only issue.
The delegate does not believe that consequences are the only issue. The delegate does believe that all the clauses clearly request and are not do not have a strong sense of forcing countries to return artifacts. And as stated before from previous delegations, consequences is one of the major issues, and believes that no amount of amendments that can be made by the delegation of Russia or any other delegation will make this resolution possible to pass.
Thank you, the delegate of Canada. Does the delegate of Russia yield the floor to the chair?
The delegate of Russia yields the floor to the chair.
I think we have a new amendment.
We still need to vote on this amendment though, the one currently.
Oh, I thought it was the second degree. Okay.
No, not to the second degree.
Now move on to voting procedure, voting time for this amendment. Any delegates who wish to vote for this amendment, please raise your placards now. Yes, delegates wishing to vote against this amendment, please raise your placards now. Due to an overwhelming majority, this amendment fails. Clapping is not in order.
Okay, so there was a second. There was a second. Oh my goodness. Let me get out of editing. Okay, there we go. There was another amendment, and it was to strike clause 7. Nope, not
Who's it
anymore.
by?
It is by the delegate of Colombia.
Can the delegate of Colombia please, the delegate of Colombia, you've been recognized.
Although the delegate of Colombia does believe that this is an important issue, the delegate of Colombia does not believe that clause 7 belongs under this resolution.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any and all points of information?
1 point of information.
Delegate has opened themselves up to 1 point of information. If there are any on the floor at this time, please raise your placards now. The delegate of Portugal.
Can the delegate of Colombia please expand on why they believe this clause doesn't belong in the resolution?
Clause 7 endorses all displays or possessions of historically discriminatory statuary that represent oppression and prejudice towards
Point of personal privilege due to audibility. May the delegate please speak louder.
Clause 7 endorses all displays or possessions of historical discriminatory statuary that represents oppression and prejudice towards a group of people against their will to be taken down in order to promote diversity and inclusion. While this is an important point, the resolution is about facilitating the return of artifacts and cultural relics to their site of provenance. So I do not believe that this is relevant to the resolution.
Delegate, please refrain from using personal pronouns.
Sorry.
And does the delegate of Portugal want to reply?
No, thanks.
Thank you, delegate of Portugal. Does the delegate of Colombia yield the floor to the chair?
Yes.
We'll now move on to time for this amendment. If there are any delegates wishing to speak for this amendment, please raise your placards now. The delegate of Japan, you've been recognized.
The delegate of Japan would like to speak for this amendment to the resolution. As the delegate of Japan totally agrees with the delegate of Colombia in that while this is a very important issue, it does not have much relevance to the current resolution and issue being discussed within this resolution. Whether something is discriminatory or not makes no difference to whether it would be repatriated to the country of provenance, and urges other countries to vote in support of this amendment to exclude clause 7 from the resolution.
Thank you, the delegate of Japan. Is the delegate open to any and all points of information?
The delegate is open to no points of information.
Does the delegate yield the floor to the chair?
The delegate yield the floor to the chair.
Thank you, delegate. We will now move on to time against this amendment. If there are any on the floor at this time, please raise your placards now.
Motion to move to previous question.
Denied due to the delegate of, wait, Canada, did you lower your placard? Oh, yeah. The delegate of Canada, you've been recognized.
The delegate of Canada, which wishes to outline the relevance of this clause in the resolution. With regards to repatriation, it is extremely relevant displaying or possessing artifacts that represent discriminatory and oppression towards a group of people against their will, and believes that it is relevant to the topic of repatriation.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any and all points of information?
No, the delegate is not open to points of information.
Does the delegate yield the floor to the chair?
Yes, the delegate yields the floor to the chair.
We will now move on to voting for this amendment. Delegates who are for this amendment, please raise your placards now. Again, oh, wait. Delegates who are against, please raise your placards now. Due to an overwhelming majority, this amendment passes. Clapping is in order. Wait, do we clap when amendments pass? I don't know. But yeah, it passed. Are there any more amendments, or can we move
Motion
on
to
to
move to
voting?
previous question.
Second.
Wait, previous question would be just voting, right? We will now move on to voting for the whole resolution. Oh, but then because of an amendment, we have to speak for and against again, guys. So any delegates wishing to, wait, Isabel, am I doing this correctly?
There's no current amendment. We just voted to get rid of that one. So yeah, we are now in open debate, which means anyone can speak for or against this resolution. But seeing as no one really wishes to do that, we would then move into voting procedures.
Okay, I'll just ask in case anyone wants to go. Any delegates wishing to speak for this resolution, please raise your placards now. Seeing as there are none, we will now move on to time against this resolution. Oh, guys, wait, Canada, did you want to speak for? Because like your hand.
The delegation of Canada apologizes for this.
Okay, no problem. Any delegates wishing to speak against this resolution, please raise your placards now. Seeing as there are none, we will now move into voting procedures. Abstentions are in order. Delegates who are voting for this resolution, please raise your placards now. Against? Any abstaining? Due to an overwhelming majority, this resolution fails. Clapping is not in order.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, Delegate?
Chair, previously delegates had said that they were only present and not present and voting, yet they still chose to vote.
Isabella?
Sorry, Delegate, could you repeat your question?
The delegation of Russia has noted that previously delegates had said that they were only present and not present and voting, yet they have still chose to vote.
Okay, so what happens there is present and voting means you have to vote, you cannot abstain, but if you say present, you can still abstain. Does that make sense? Okay,
Yes.
so we will now move on to our next resolution. Okay, guys? I'll stop sharing my screen real quick. The next resolution is by Colombia and Japan. Zainab, if you want to, or can we like have everyone get a copy of that so they can take notes and all that?
I don't have the new resolution. I don't have Colombia's one. I think that's
Okay, I'll get the shareable link.
Okay.
Did everyone get that link? Okay, please everyone make your own copy. Zainab will then share her screen, do amendments, answer fact checks, and will respond to notes, and I will be sharing.
Okay, it's still opening. Sorry, guys. I need edit access because I can't edit it right now. Can the owner grant? Oh,
I can just share it with you and like.
okay, I got it.
Unmuted. Okay, so we will but we will do roll call again for this resolution. So when I say your name, please state present or present and voting. Sorry. The delegate of Benin.
Present and voting.
The delegate of Canada.
Present.
The delegate of Colombia.
Present.
The delegate of Ethiopia.
Present.
The delegate of France. Still absent. The delegate of Germany.
Present.
The delegate of India.
Present.
The delegate of Japan.
Present and voting.
The delegate of Kenya. Sorry, delegate, could you please repeat that?
Present.
Thank you. The delegate of Portugal.
Present.
The delegate of Russia.
Present and voting.
The delegate of UK.
Present.
Thank you, delegates. All right, would the main submitter please read their resolution?
The General Assembly, declaring that non-government organizations
Sorry,
functioning.
delegate. Would you please read the question of so people know what we're doing? Thank you.
Sorry. Question of addressing NGOs' contributions to the promotion of long-term sustainable development in Africa.
Point of personal privilege, audibility.
Question of addressing NGOs' contributions to the promotion of long-term sustainable development in Africa. The General Assembly, declaring that non-government organizations functioning and engaged in Africa should be provided with increased resources in order to promote long-term sustainability in Africa and long-term sustainable development in Africa. Bearing in mind that since NGOs have begun working in Africa, numerous problems, including but not limited to hunger, HIV and AIDS, and water scarcity have declined. Fully aware that the majority of NGOs have experienced difficulties in getting enough and continuous funding in order to do their work, which is a problem because NGOs in Africa have become key actors in responding to poverty and related suffering, while also playing a leading role in providing healthcare and education in less economically developed countries. Emphasizing that in sub-Saharan Africa, as a whole, per capita income dropped by 21% in real terms between 1981 and 1989. In 16 other sub-Saharan countries, per capita incomes were also lower in 1999 than in 1995. Nearly 42% of the population of sub-Saharan Africa live on less than $1 a day. This decline in income results which can lead to problems such as increasing poverty rates and lower literacy rates. Seeking the support of all member states to promote long-term sustainable development in Africa by following these resolutions. Clause 1 encourages the Human Rights Council to pay special attention to global issues in Africa and continue to work with NGOs to promote sustainable development in Africa. Clause 2 adopts a new system for the United Nations Democracy Fund, in which the UNDEF is required to prioritize proposals from LEDCs, whether they be from NGOs or governments that are promoting long-term sustainable development in Africa. Subclause A requiring the UNDEF to set aside 25% of their budget to focus solely on proposals from NGOs or governments and LEDCs promoting and advocating for long-term sustainable development in Africa. Clause 3 encourages that the member states of the UNDEF provide additional funding to NGOs contributing to the long-term sustainable development in Africa. Subclause A, by requiring NGOs and LEDCs to apply for these additional funds by issuing an application to the UNDEF, stating why they need the funds and how they will distribute these funds to promote long-term sustainable development in Africa. Clause 4, holding a United Nations Convention Against Corruption annually, requiring the recipient countries to issue a report annually to the General Assembly stating what financial and humanitarian issues were battled and how the recipient countries invested in improving the management of funds. Requiring the subclause B, requiring the General Assembly and member states of this resolution to pay close attention and monitor the use of funds by aid by NGOs within recipient countries. Subclause C, redistribute the funds for the following year in accordance with the conclusions reached by the UNCAC on how each NGO within LEDCs made use of funds and how the recipient countries invested in improving the management of funds. Clause 5 recommends encouraging both member states and NGOs within LEDCs about the advantages of self-sustainability at the annual UNCAC. By educating member states and NGOs receiving the funds, that reduction of aid dependence is key to the long-term sustainability of not only individual NGOs, but the broader society. Subclause B, by educating the member states and NGOs receiving the funds, that the reduction of aid dependence will be mutually beneficial, as member states will benefit from the relationships formed with self-sustaining NGOs. Clause 6 encourages member states to support and help NGOs in LEDCs by providing human and material resources at their disposal to prevent any further struggles they may be faced with. Clause 7 requires recipient countries and NGOs within recipient countries to prioritize member states in future relations and trade agreements.
Thank you, Delegate. Does the delegate have any opening remarks for this resolution?
The delegate does have opening remarks.
Would the delegate please speak for this resolution?
This resolution focuses on the funding of NGOs in less economically developed countries in Africa. And one of the main reasons why your country should sign this resolution is because they will get priority in
Delegate,
future.
sorry, please refrain from using personal pronouns.
Priority in future trade agreements with these countries once they're self-sustaining and no longer need to be kept afloat by NGOs.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
The delegate is open to 2 points of information.
The delegate has opened himself up to 3 points of information. If there are any such points in the House, please raise your placards now. The delegate of Ethiopia, Portugal, and Germany, you have been recognized in that order.
Thank you. The delegate of Ethiopia would just like some clarification on what the involvement of the Human Rights Council will be in Africa.
The involvement of the Human Rights Council would be to observe the any other struggles that are in LEDCs, which are not currently being targeted by NGOs.
Right to reply.
Granted.
How would the delegate of Colombia ensure that the Human Rights Council does not interfere with the political sovereignty of the countries that they are operating in within Africa?
The Human Rights Council would not interfere with the political sovereignty, as the United Nations has not interfered with political sovereignty all throughout their history.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you, delegates. Will the delegate of Portugal please rise and state their point?
Is Colombia open to fund for these NGOs, seeing as the delegate believes NGOs have an important role in Africa?
Colombia is open to fund for these NGOs.
Right of reply.
Granted.
Seeing as the global pandemic has affected Colombia's economy so severely, how will Colombia manage to do so?
At this time, I'm not sure, but we're working on it.
Delegate, please refrain from using personal pronouns.
At this time, the delegate of Colombia is not sure. However, Colombia and the president are working on a solution currently.
Thank you, delegates. Would the delegate of Germany please rise and state a point of information? Germany. Would the delegate of Germany please rise and state a point of information? Because the delegate of Germany is not responding, thank you, delegate of Colombia. Granted. Oh, yeah, sorry. Points of information will be extended by 1. If there are any such points, please raise your placards now. The delegate of Russia, you have been recognized.
The delegate of Russia would like to request that the delegate of Colombia elaborates when saying that the delegation of Colombia and the president are working on solutions to helping this issue.
Currently in Colombia, we are also struggling with the COVID-19 pandemic. So right now, we are still working to resolve that issue in our country. However, after that, there will be a team set aside to focus on this matter.
Request to reply.
Right to reply, but granted.
The delegate believes that this is not fair if the delegation of Colombia, the delegate is asking why the delegate of Colombia is saying that they're going to do something if they do not even know definitively if the delegation of Colombia will be able to work on this issue in the future.
It is, in fact, a fact that we will contribute to this issue in future. However, currently, we are still working on means to contribute to this issue.
Thank you, delegates. Does the delegate of Colombia yield the floor to the chair?
He does yield. I do. The delegate yields.
Thank you, delegate. We are now in open debate for this resolution. If there are any delegates wishing to speak for or against this resolution, please raise your placards now. The delegate of Japan, you have been recognized.
As the delegate of Japan, as a co-submitter on this resolution, would just like to reiterate that the main focus of the resolution is to allocate funding and humanitarian resources to the education sectors within less economically developed countries, promoting the development of said LEDCs by ensuring they have a highly skilled workforce in the years to come, and to follow the intervention of more economically developed countries through this resolution. Not only will this promote long-term sustainable development within Africa, but also, as the delegate from Colombia said, prove extremely beneficial to donor nations by ensuring they receive priority trade agreements in the future. The delegate of Japan urges countries to think about this fact when making a decision on this resolution.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
The delegate is open to 2 points of information.
The delegate has opened themselves up to 2 points of information. If there are any such points in the House, please raise your placards now. The delegate of Portugal, you have been recognized.
How will countries manage to fund for the NGOs, seeing as so many countries are currently struggling economically due to the coronavirus pandemic?
The delegate of Japan thanks you for your query. Seeing as though every country in the world is
Delegate, sorry, please refrain from using personal pronouns.
Seeing as though every country in the world is currently dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic and struggling with it just as much as everyone else, we are not requiring, for the time being, the delegates of Colombia and Japan in this resolution are not requiring that exorbitant amounts of funds be given to African countries to promote sustainable development. However, any amount of donation given to these less fortunate countries will promote their developments in any way, regardless of the amounts that countries are able to give.
Thank you.
Thank you, delegates. Does the delegate of Japan yield the floor to the chair?
The delegate yields the floor to the chair.
Thank you. We are still in open debate for this resolution. If there are any delegates wishing to speak for or against this resolution as a whole, please raise your placards now. The chair would encourage the submission of amendments if delegates feel that there is something wrong with this resolution or wish to add something to it.
Russia submitted amendments.
All right, so we will move on to that as soon as Zainab adds it.
So it's just the striking of clause 1. Oops, suggesting mode.
All right, would the delegate of Russia please speak for this amendment?
The delegate of Russia believes that the first clause does not add any value to this resolution, but does believe that this resolution is very important and can be voted on, but believes that striking clause 1 is more beneficial to the resolution.
Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
The delegate has opened himself up to 3 points of information. If there are any such points in the House, please raise your placards now. The delegates of Ethiopia, Portugal, and India, you have been recognized in that order.
Could the delegate of Russia please elaborate on why they believe that this clause is not beneficial to this resolution?
The delegate of Russia believes that merely stating that the Human Rights Council is encouraged to pay special attention is not definitive and cannot be measured in any way. Hence, it can be merely passed off by the Human Rights Council quite easily and not noticed by any member states.
Thank you.
The delegate of Portugal would like to retract their point of information due to it being asked by the delegate of Ethiopia.
Sorry, could the delegate of Portugal please repeat that?
The delegate of Portugal would like to retract their point of information due to it already being asked.
Thank you, delegate. Would the delegate of India please rise and state their point?
Does the delegate of Russia not feel that this clause emphasizes the importance and significance of the whole resolution, and by extracting this clause has no effect, has no benefits, rather than keeping this clause in, and the difference between keeping this clause and extracting it is minimal and maybe obsolete?
The delegate of Russia does partially understand what the delegate of India is saying and believes that the delegate of India has already answered her own question in saying that it merely emphasizes the fact and thus should be in the preambulatory clauses and not a main clause.
Thank you, delegates. Does the delegate of Russia yield his time to the chair?
Yes, the delegate of Russia yields the floor to the chair.
Thank you. We will now move into closed debate on this amendment with time for this amendment. If there are any delegates wishing to speak for this amendment, please raise your placards now. Seeing as there are no delegates wishing to speak for this amendment, we will move into time against this amendment. If there are any delegates wishing to speak against this amendment, please raise your placards now.
Motion to move to previous question.
Second.
Seconded.
All right, we will move into voting procedures for this amendment. Please suspend all note passing, and those wishing to vote for this amendment, please raise your placards now. Sorry, the delegate of Kenya, did you raise your hand? Thank you. Please leave your hands up while I'm counting. Thank you. All right. If there are any delegates wishing to vote against this amendment, please raise your placards now. All right, due to an overwhelming majority, this amendment passes. Clapping is not in order since it is an unfriendly amendment. Sorry, the delegate of Japan, you said that you were present and voting and yet you abstained from this vote. Which way do you vote?
For the amendment, sorry. The
All right,
delegate
it's still
the
the
overall
amendment.
of the whole
Okay,
resolution.
thank you. The amendment then passes.
I didn't get any more amendments, so
Motion to move to previous question.
Second.
Denied. We are still in open debate for this resolution as a whole. So if there are any delegates in the House wishing to speak for or against this resolution as a whole, please raise your placards now. Seeing as there are no delegates wishing to speak for or against this resolution, we
Chair, the
will.
delegate wishes to submit an amendment.
Has
we
the
have
delegate-
another amendment from the delegate of Russia. Yeah, it's just striking clause 6.
Would the delegate of Russia speak about this amendment?
The delegate of Russia wishes to strike clause 6 from this resolution, as the delegation believes that this clause is offensive to many member states, as if a country or if a country helps another country, according to his understanding, they now are indebted to the country that has helped them, and he feels this is not fair on member states that are receiving, on the recipients member states that are receiving help.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
1 point of information.
The delegate has opened himself up to 1 point of information. If there are any such points in the House, please raise your placards now. The delegate of India, you have been recognized.
Does the delegate not feel that countries donating toward these NGOs deserve compensation for their funding?
The delegate of Russia believes that it was a mere donation, and a donation does not mean that anything is required in return, as a donation in its definition or in its essence is meant out of the goodness of one's heart and does not require a debt to be paid out.
Right of reply.
Granted.
Does the delegate not feel that extracting this clause will negatively affect donations, as entities will now not opt to donate as this clause has been extracted?
The delegate of Russia does understand the delegate of India's perspective, but still believes it is not fair that other countries need, that recipient member states need to be indebted to member states that are providing them with aid, as it is just aid and not a trade deal per se.
Thank you, delegate. Thank you, delegates. Does the delegate of Russia yield his time to the floor? Chair.
Yes, the delegate yields the floor to the chair.
Thank you. We are now entering closed debate for this amendment. If there are any delegates in the House wishing to speak for this amendment, please raise your placards now. Seeing as there, the delegate of Ethiopia, you have been recognized.
Thank you. The delegate of Ethiopia would like to express their agreement with the delegate of Russia. This clause is unfair to member states receiving aid, as it is expected to be a donation from the goodness from one's heart, as the delegate of Russia stated. And this clause goes against that and against the idea of the resolution to help developing nations in Africa.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
The delegate is not open to any points of information.
The delegate has opened herself up to 1 point of information. If there are any such points in the House, please raise your placards now. The delegate of India, you have been recognized.
If the delegate can please draw from an example, when political parties are running for office, there are donors that donate towards their campaign, and in them being elected to office, that political party is then indebted to the donors. This initiative motivates donors to donate. And so in extracting this clause, the delegate of India feels that this will negatively impact funding.
Sorry, delegate, could you please restate that as a question?
Does the delegate not feel that the extraction of this clause, based on the example provided, that the extraction of this clause will negatively impact funding?
The delegate feels that the example given by the delegate of India cannot be likened to developing nations receiving aid. The delegate believes that countries receiving aid are not running for political office, but are rather trying to improve or better their country and should not be indebted in the way that a political campaign works.
Thank you, delegates. Does the delegate yield the floor to the chair?
The delegate yields the floor to the chair.
Thank you. We are still in closed debate for this amendment. If there are any delegates wishing to speak for this amendment, please raise your placards now. Seeing as there were no placards raised, we will then move into a closed debate against this amendment. If there are any delegates wishing to speak against this amendment, please raise your placards now. The delegate of Japan, you have been recognized.
The delegate of Japan would like to point out and question the amendment being presented and make it very clear that clause, what's this number? Clause 6 does not require countries to be indebted in any way besides the fact that besides prioritizing trade agreements that are already going to happen. By prioritizing trade agreements that are happening anyways, not only do donor countries not feel indebted or not being put in a position where they're able to be exploited, it can actually, by promoting fair trade and free trade between donor nations and recipient nations, help to alleviate the effects of neocolonialism within Africa and further develop countries and allow them to escape their poverty traps.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Delegate is open to 1 point of information.
The delegate has opened himself up to 2 points of information. If there are any such points in the House, please raise your placards now.
States. However, when investigations are conducted, the delegate and other member states will learn more about the intentions and the causes of this incident.
Right to reply.
Granted.
The delegate of the UK said that the delegate did not make any conclusions, but stating that Japanese committed a war crime, isn't that a hasty conclusion, as a controversy still exists whether it was the attack or the defense of the Japanese army?
The delegate has no reason to believe that China attacked itself or wanted to be attacked, and the delegate
are not indebted because the trade agreements between these nations would be happening inevitably. And in fact, by forcing countries to prioritize trade, it helps the trade of these member states by pushing them to make trade agreements that are mutually beneficial for both countries. So you are not indebting these. This resolution does not put countries receiving funds in debt, but in fact can help promote mutually beneficial trade between countries.
Right to reply.
Granted.
The delegate of Russia asks the delegate of Japan if he would be willing to make a amendment to the second degree to this to make it clear that these would be happening on existing trade deals and would not be more powerful countries taking advantage of these LEDC countries.
The delegate of Japan will agree to that amendment in the second degree, as the delegate feels that it is important to understand that.
And Canada, you have been recognized in this particular order.
Sorry, Chair, but the delegate of Madagascar raised their hand.
All points of information for now are going to be the ones that the chair has appointed, and later on we will see if the point of information period can be extended.
The delegate of China would like to ask the delegate of North Korea if the delegate is under the influence of any drugs, and if so, would he like to share?
The delegate of North Korea would not disclose such informations, but could possibly have a talk with the delegate of China at a later date in a later situation.
Right to respond? The delegate of China thanks the delegate of North Korea and wishes to have better connections. Thank you.
The delegate of North Korea in response would once again like to reestablish that this is why North Korea and China have a good trading relationship.
As North Korea is not an official member of the UN and does not pay any dues to the UN and has no past participation, this delegate believes that all of North Korea's points are invalid and that North Korea should be removed from this committee for infiltrating this.
Delegate of North Korea is once again shocked at the audacity of the delegate of Brazil, as the delegate of North Korea, in fact, not only supplies the UN with many, many useful informations, but is also able to provide them with scientific research that is legitimate and not propaganda, unlike much of the research done by countries, not only such as Brazil, that have been reported to have high corruption rates, but other countries that are unable to even take care of their local land. Thank you.
Right to reply.
Of technology, strategy, and law for agencies involved in the handling of sensitive data, have the ability to provide interdisciplinary expertise in the field of cyber defense research, segue the combating of government-targeted cyber attacks, appoint leaders from such agencies to represent their countries as means to come together as nation states and encourage peaceful use of information and communication technologies, educate other nations on how to develop their cybersecurity and make themselves less suspicious to attacks in the cyberspace, head the resolving of all issues national and international concerning, but not limited to, cybersecurity, cyber warfare, and cyber terrorism, emphasizes the need for nation states to increase budgeting dedicated to the maintenance of a satisfactory cybersecurity of the following. Member states that lack such systems are encouraged to invest in the establishment of cybersecurity agencies, which would be expected to find flaws in the country's cyber system, inform the government how they can be alleviated, take the necessary steps needed to alleviate these threats, develop new ways of fighting attacks, and share them with other agencies from all the other member states. Nations who may not have the resources available to implement such new technology systems, in such cases, feasible solutions to this are, but not limited to, the United Nations revising the situation within the nation and would provide the required funds for the nation if deemed appropriate and or necessary. other member states providing financial and technical assistance to such nations upon their request in order to strengthen their technology-based democratic systems while simultaneously nurturing such international relationships. Nations who already have sufficient budgeting dedicated to protect the nation against cyber attacks and therefore are very cyber secure nations. In such cases, the Disarmament Committee would strongly encourage them to continue with such systems put in place. Recommends to raise public awareness regarding the challenges of cybersecurity during presidential and state elections by implementing the following measures. Informing political parties as well as open societies about the devastating effects of cyber attacks. Sorry?
No, delegate, keep going.
Dedicating and controlling fake news on social media platforms related to the elections. Establish a final report by testifying the transparent holdings of elections with or without any interference of cyber attacks. Informing the public that an election has to be redone in case of proven cyber attacks, as it violates the international legal principles of sovereignty and non-intervention. Further recommends the improvement of cyber resilience during of election in the subsequent ways, reinforcing the protection field of crucial governmental institutions against cyber attacks by hiring technology experts before and during the election process, whose primary focus is to make sure that all potential and ongoing threats of cyber attacks are dealt with accordingly. Testing and applying defensive measures and installing a 24-hour surveillance team. Replacing the use of voting machines that are connected by wireless networks with systems that produce auditable paper trails. Ensuring that confidential election-related data cannot be lost nor misused. Testing election-related technology in local elections for voters to understand and trust the new process and for security experts to cope with rising problems in advance. Implementing a tight security system during the election by only allowing authorized people to access sensitive electronic voting, counting, and management functionality. Guaranteeing a mechanism that allows an accurate, monitored, and manual recount of votes as a backup. Further invites nation states to continue global awareness on cyber terrorism to avoid harm from cyber attacks in a way that would ensure people are educated on the potential threats that technology poses by providing financial support to nonprofit organizations such as the Information Systems Security Organization that brings awareness to threats of cyber terrorism and measures to avoid cyber attacks. Educating youth on the cyber attack impacts of information and communication technology through the means of ensuring that subsection of the course curriculum focuses on how to avoid harmful usage and share ways to more cyber resilient technologies. Implementing a compulsory computer and technology-based course for teachers and adolescents at a high school level in technology advanced schools. Explaining the cyber attack risks that come with the use of mechanization to less technology advanced schools. Educating government officials about these same issues as well as how to combat cyber attacks in the event that one falls victim to it. Implementing a mandatory training course for all technology-dependent organizations, including scientific institutions, that will cover topics such as, but not limited to, ways to properly use information and communication technologies so as to not jeopardize the cyber safety of the devices they and the rest of the organization are responsible for. How to avoid permanent loss of data from cyber attacks on their technologies. Calls upon countries to prioritize the cybersecurity of nuclear weapons and other sensitive military equipment in order to avoid the weapons manipulation, damage, and misuse. May the delegate of Poland start with their opening speech?
Before the delegate of Poland speaks, China has raised his hand. Was the delegate of China, is that a mistake, or does the delegate of China have a question?
Apologies, the hand was raised from the previous voting.
Thank you. Delegate of Poland, please proceed with your speech. Chair would also like to note that a debate time has been set for 1 hour. We will be following this timeline strictly due to time constraints. Delegate of Poland, please present your speech.
Technology has countless benefits, including globalization and more efficient work. However, terrorists use this opportunity to harm states. As mentioned in the preambulatory clause, terrorists use cybercrime as it enables a variety of places to target and it is cheaper. The delegate of Poland is aware that cyber warfare can cause irreversible chaos and damage. In fact, cyber attacks in Poland increased from 50 incidents in 1996 to over 6,000 in 2019, some of which aim to disrupt governmental activities. Therefore, Poland, along with many other nations, is committed to work on ways to fight cyber attacks and threats, and this resolution touches upon possible solutions. Particularly, it addresses the priorities that states need to make, which includes keeping sensitive military equipment safe from cyber attacks and increasing cybersecurity during elections. This is because it is believed that there will be an increase of electronic voting over votes being submitted at polling stations due to the corona pandemic. Votes being submitted online are vulnerable to cyber manipulation during the internet transmission to a printing station, as mentioned in the preambulatory clause. In order to be more successful, the House needs to work together to combat cyber warfare and protect democracy, and therefore the delegate of Poland, along with the delegate of Greece and the delegate of Japan is fully welcomes amendments to this resolution and urges member states to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
The delegate is open to 3 points of information.
The delegate has opened herself up to 3 points of information. If there are any such in the House, please raise your hand now. Mali, North Korea, and the Russian Federation, you have all been recognized in that order. Delegate of Mali.
Delegate of Mali has a point of information to operative clause 3, subclause DB. How will this be operated through the individual governments or through the UN? And wouldn't this be controlling people's rights to free speech, especially because fake news is not always stemmed from bots and people trying to manipulate the election? It could just come from misinformed, miseducated people. Thank you.
Thank you for your point, Delegate of Mali. The Delegate of Poland would like to explain that the controlling fake news is related to the fact that it is believed that Russia has used this as a way to manipulate the elections in 2016 in the US, and this is not, we do not want to repeat this, and neither the UN nor individual governments would be responsible for this. The individual social media accounts would be, but pressure would be made upon them in order for this to happen.
Right to reply.
Granted.
The event in which Russia altered the US election of 2016, that was an isolated event. And yes, although there's a high probability that it did happen, that was just one event. And by enacting this, you'd be taking away the personal freedoms of probably thousands of people from restrictions on their social media. Obviously isn't a birth given right, but they have right to free speech, at least as to what their country's viewpoint is on that.
The delegate of Poland understands where the delegate of Mali is coming from, but the delegate of Poland would like to explain that the fake news in the 2016 elections were not from individual people whose privacy was invaded. It was mainly from bots that just wanted to affect these or just manipulate these elections. And again, the privacy of these people would not be changed because it is only election related, and it would not posts that would just explain their point of view would not be taken off, because that is not false information. It is simply false information that is not correct information, which is not an opinion, which is not personal privacy. It is just the wrong facts, and therefore this has to be dealt with and removed off social media.
Fact check to the chair.
Granted. Fact check.
Does the delegate of Poland have proof/evidence that bots were the only accounts to post fake news during the 2016 election?
Point of order.
Evidence has been sent in by the delegate of Poland. Yes.
The delegate of Poland would like to remind that the delegate of Poland said mainly bots or something like that, but not only.
Noted. Thank you, delegate. Delegate of North Korea.
The delegate of North Korea would like to ask the delegate of Poland what are the delegate of Poland's thoughts about the fact that in 2018, $114 billion were spent on ensuring cybersecurity systems, and in 2022, $170.4 billion would be the cost that cybersecurity systems would be esteemed at. Thus, doesn't the delegate of Poland think that cybersecurity investing in this is just costly and useless?
The delegate of Poland does not agree with this because cyber warfare is such an important topic because it really impacts every single individual, including hospitals that have patients died because of cyber attacks on these hospitals. And the governments need to take all possible measures to assure the safety of its citizens. And the delegate of Poland would also like to remind that as development moves forward, the individual costs of these measures would decrease.
Right to reply. Right to reply.
Granted.
The delegate of North Korea would like to thank the delegate of Poland for their points. However, doesn't the delegate of Poland believe that by ensuring a more controlled system like the one that we can see in North Korea, for example, controlling internet, and that would enable citizens to be safer and less at risk from these cyber attacks and cyber terrorism attacks?
The delegate of Poland does not agree because there have been, because it is believed that North Korea invades privacy at some points, and the delegate of Poland does not want to wish this upon other citizens, as that is an important part of democracy, choice, democracy to have their privacy. As mentioned before, the controlling of fake news would only be election related and not necessarily opinion based.
Right to reply.
Denied due to time constraints. Delegate of the Russian Federation.
The delegation of the Russian Federation would like to retract their point of information as it's already been answered.
Thank you, Delegate. An amendment has been submitted by the Delegate of Mali. Delegate of Mali, could you please read out your amendment and explain it?
The delegate of Mali submitted an amendment for operative clause 3, subclause B and D. The delegate of Mali will first cover subclause B. The delegate of Mali would like to, as an amendment, remove this subclause. As previously stated by an interaction between, or as points stated by the delegate of North Korea and Poland, North Korea brought up how it would be in a better solution to straight up control the entire internet, and Poland followed that by stating Poland does not believe that that would be an effective solution because people deserve rights to online internet privacy. But though in this subclause there, the delegate of Poland is saying that, or at least in this resolution, that controlling this aspect of the internet / social media is acceptable.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Delegate is open himself to any and all points of information, but due to time constraints, chairs will limit those at 4 points of information. If there are any such points of information, please raise your hand now. Delegate of China and Poland and North Korea, you all have been recognized in that order. Delegate of China, please state your point.
Thank you to the delegate of Mali for providing this amendment to the resolution. The delegate of China believes that the delegate of Mali is correct, that that the delegate has contradicted herself at one point, but the delegate of China believes that the First Amendment that the delegate of Mali submitted for clause 3B to strike out clause 3B should not be in order, as social media platforms do promote fake news and therefore should not be struck out.
Delegate of Mali, please reply.
I don't believe the delegate of Mali does not believe that the delegate of China would be a fair representative of how social media should be controlled, as within the People's Republic of China, numerous the People's Republic of China has a very strict, tight control over their internet and interactions online, and that is within their own respective boundaries. But spreading out into the world, most other countries respect people's online privacy and rights online.
Right to reply.
Granted, due to interest in debate.
Firstly, the delegate of Mali, the delegate of China feels very insulted by the delegate of Mali's point, and therefore the delegate of China would like the delegate of Mali to apologize as the delegate feels attacked. Secondly, the delegate of China would like to state that the delegate of China in China, people's rights are protected, and that their social media accounts and their internet search may be monitored, but at least it is not being spread into other countries or other places, and therefore elections such as elections or cyber terrorism or cyber warfare cannot happen, and can be if happen on a very irregular basis, and therefore this is not possible.
Delegate, please be reminded that your point of information has to be formed in a question.
Sorry, the delegate of China would like to ask the delegate of Mali to restate his point correctly.
Thank you, Delegate of China. Delegate of Mali.
The delegate of Mali, firstly, would not like to apologize to the delegate of China, and the delegate of Mali would like to bring up the spread of Chinese bots covering the human rights violations in Hong Kong currently. Currently on Twitter, there are thousands of accounts that have been covering up these protests, and have been stating that these are aggressive protesters. The delegate of Mali would just like to state that the government of China is within itself spreading bots to cover up things that are happening within their own country.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, Delegate, please state your point of parliamentary inquiry.
Would the delegate of China please get a fact check done on the point that the delegate of Mali said?
Delegate of Mali, please state your points that the delegate wants to fact check.
Point of parliamentary inquiry. Does this mean does this mean the delegate would like a source?
Yes.
Can the delegate of Mali send this in an email, or just or is the name of the article and website?
Send it to a chat to Jonah.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, Delegate of China.
Does not a fact check doesn't a fact check required to be done online in front of everyone, proving that this is not on Wikipedia or such a website that the answers could be changed, or in a website such as Quora?
Is the delegate suggesting that he doesn't trust the chairs?
The delegate is not suggesting that. The delegate is suggesting that he does not trust the delegate of Mali.
Delegate of China, the delegate of Mali has pre-submitted his sources to us before the conference, as he did, right? He did do that.
Yeah.
So we have checked his sources, and we can affirm you that they are correct.
Delegate of
Thank you,
Poland,
Chairs.
please state your point of information.
Firstly, the delegate of Poland would like to remind the House that the delegate of Poland did not say that it would invade privacy and rights. It simply said that it encourages social media news to limit fake news that are related to the election, which makes sense, as people are very, very much influenced by social media, which would change the outcome of an election. And this does not mean that they cannot speak their mind. It does not mean that they can't say their fake news in real life. It simply says not to post it, because that is where people are influenced on social media. And The delegate of Poland is wondering if the delegate of Mali is aware that some social media accounts already have those guidelines that prohibit very violent posts or posts that are fake news, and this would just encourage us even more and restrict it even more, so people are not influenced. So is the delegate of Mali aware of this?
The delegate of Mali would like to respond by saying it is not within the UN's sovereignty and rights to control people's freedoms and liberties. The delegate of Mali believes that it's everyone's basic human right to have the right to free speech, whatever it may be, and whatever beliefs they may hold, even if it may be to spread false information. That is their right to do so, and it's not within this committee's
right to reply
to control those.
The delegate of Holland would like to address the House and simply tell them that the delegate of Mali just stated that it is a basic human right to spread false information. And I hope the House takes it into consideration when voting for or against this amendment. And the delegate Poland would like to ask the delegate of Mali if he really believes that social media if he really believes that false information is a human right.
The delegate of Mali would like to reply by stating, the delegate of Mali did not state that spreading false information is a basic human right. The delegate of Mali said that free speech is a basic human right, and everything within that is entailed to being part of basic human rights. So yes, the delegate of Mali did not say directly that spreading false information is a direct human right, but it is within free speech. And the delegate of Mali does believe that people have the right to do everything, and it's not within a government's power to control them through their speech.
Delegate of North Korea.
First of all, the delegate of North Korea would like to say that this is the clauses that the delegate of Mali has struck out are the only clauses in the resolution, some of the only clauses in the resolution that North Korea does agree with, and thus is fully against Mali striking out these clauses. Doesn't the delegate of Mali realize that sometimes citizens' safety must come over their privacy and freedoms?
The delegate of Mali would like to respond by in the form of a question by stating which safeties are being protected by limiting their rights to speech.
Point of order.
Yes, delegate, please state your point of order.
Or point of personal privilege due to audibility.
Delegate, please rephrase and come closer to your mic. Not the delegate of North Korea, the delegate of Mali.
Excuse me. What would the chair request the delegate of Mali?
Please restate your point due to audibility reasons. The delegate of North Korea could not hear the delegate of Mali.
Okay, my bad. The delegate of Mali would like to respond in the form of a question. Which safeties of citizens are being protected by limiting their rights to speech and chat online?
Right to reply.
Granted.
A government, is a delegate of Mali aware that the government has to control citizens' rights and internet in order to promote a more safe and primarily a society which enhances well-being, so that there is no misuse and false spread of information, and so that individuals in the society are more aware and more informed of righteous and correct news.
The delegate of Mali would like. Okay. The delegate of Mali would like to respond by saying, within the country of North Korea, if someone was to state that people are being starved through a misfunctional government, would the North Korean government state that as fake and wrong? And isn't fake news relevant relevant to?
Delegate, please be reminded you cannot answer a point of information with a question.
Sorry to the chair. In that case, could the delegate of North Korea please repeat their reply?
Delegate, could you please repeat your reply?
Isn't the delegate of Mali aware that so that citizens are safe within the society, wrong and misspread of information has to be controlled, so that citizens are not wrongly influenced, and so that citizens have access to righteous and are informed with correct information?
The delegate of Mali would like to respond by stating fake news. Fake news is not relative to a world standard. It's relative to the governments in which they believe of fake news. Within North Korea, if a North Korean citizen was to go on an online chat forum and state that because of the government's misfunction and control, like a member of their family was sent to a work camp due to a crime they did not commit, that would be considered fake and false, even though on a world scale, that is something that would be considered true.
Right to reply. Right to reply. Chair?
Denied due to time constraints. Delegates, we are now in closed debate for or against this amendment as a whole. If there are any delegates willing to speak for or against this amendment, please raise your hand now. The delegate of Greece, you have been recognized.
Delegate of Greece strongly urges delegates not to vote for this amendment, as the delegate of Mali has failed to see how striking out such amendments does not help the delegates or the resolution reach its goal, and therefore is not protecting sustainable democracy. First of all, the delegate of Mali had stated that the Russian situation that happened a few years ago was just an isolated situation that is unlikely to happen again. Even if that is true, one should not just prepare for war when someone has attacked. As the UN and just as countries, people should learn from other people's mistakes and make corrections accordingly, and not just wait for it to happen to them before they take action. Second of all, the clause has no intent to infiltrate people's privacy or hack into people's accounts and look at things such as their search history, or just things that are just part of their privacy. But what the clause was basically trying to say was that it would be as simple as like setting up a team to go online and seek out such fake news on public platforms and contact sources who had posted them, basically telling them to take them down, or even what the delegate of Poland had said, which would be basically just restricting people from posting about fake news, because lying sure is a human right, but it is not a human right that we should encourage if it can lead to the discouragement of sustainable democracy. And third of all, the delegate of Mali stated that it was not within the rights of the UN to infiltrate other people's privacy. But this resolution only recommended to nations and cyber cybersecurity agencies to take such actions. The UN would not be responsible for these actions, but this resolution is recommending to nations actions to take in order to protect sustainable democracy. And lastly, the delegate of Mali stated that in no way could people posting fake news, what's that word? I'm sorry. Could no way like compromise the safety of its citizens. But if people make their votes based on fake news, they have self-evoked their right to democracy if their vote is based upon lies. And therefore, by doing that, they have discouraged and they're not protecting sustainable democracy. And that is what this resolution is aiming to attack. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the Delegate of Greece open to any points of information?
Delegate is open to 3 points of information.
The delegate has opened herself up to 3 points of information. If there are any such in the House, please raise your hand now. Delegate of Mali and Delegate of North Korea, you have been recognized in that order. Delegate of Mali.
Is not social interaction the most basic form of democracy, as to ask multiple people as for their opinions on one thing to come together for a collective cause? And would not limiting people's social interactions in turn ruin the basic meaning of democracy, as so you stated?
Delegate, please refrain from using personal pronouns. Delegate of Greece.
Lying in social media is not an opinion. It's just lying and directly attacking sustainable democracy for someone else's benefit.
Right to reply.
Denied due to time constraints. Delegate of North Korea.
Delegate of North Korea.
Actually, sorry, the chair made a mistake. Granted. Molly, please reply.
Wait, could the delegate of Greece please repeat the thing? I forgot about it since the committee was moving on to the second point of interest.
No.
Okay. As the delegate of Greece stated, a lying is not an opinion on social media, except as though as earlier I made an example of how in North Korea, and let's take an example of in North Korea, if someone was to say, like, a member of the family had been sent to a work camp and the North Korean government had denied that is within itself an opinion of fake news. The North Korean government believes that it's fake news, but on a world scale, it is accounted for, it is seen as real. That's why fake news in itself, fake is just an opinion. And by stating that lying is not an opinion, it's how people interpret it.
Fact check.
Granted, what is your fact check?
Could the chair please search up if fake news are an opinion?
Can you please repeat that? There was an audibility issue.
Could the chair search up if fake news are opinions?
Okay.
The delegate of Mali did not phrase his point of information in the form of a question, so I don't
Delegate of
know.
Mali, please phrase your point of information in the form of a question.
For the fact check, fake news is not considered an opinion, but rather just fake facts.
Delegate of Mali, please state your
Would,
point of information in the form of a question.
then could we have the delegate of Greece restate their
Delegate of Greece, please restate your point.
What point? He responded to my point and he didn't phrase it in the form of a question, so he needs to do that.
Yeah.
Delegate of Mali, please. ask a question.
Delegate of Mali does not remember what the initial point was as.
Then we will be moving on. Delegate of North Korea.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, the delegate of North Korea would like to say that if there are no fake news in North Korea, this is because people believe wholeheartedly in their government and people believe that they are safe within society and would not see the need for fake news to be spread. Secondly, doesn't the delegate of Greece agree that social media should be filtered and only righteous information should be allowed?
No, the delegate of Greece does not believe in that. The delegate of Greece does not believe in taking away the privacy of its citizens. That is why in this clause, the intent would be for a team to seek out this fake information without taking away from other people's privacy.
Try to reply.
Granted.
Controlling whether people or individual, wouldn't delegate Greece agree that controlling whether people spread fake news is the same thing as filtering their platform?
The delegate would agree that in a way it could be seen as filtering a platform, but the delegate does not think that in this particular situation, it would be a negative thing to do if the end product would be to protect sustainable democracy.
Right to reply.
Denied. Due to time constraints, we will now be moving. The chair strongly suggests a motion to move to previous question for voting for the
Motion to move to
amendment.
previous question.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All right, please remember that amendments, abstentions are not in order. Delegates, all for the passing of this amendment as a whole, please raise your hands now. All opposed? Due to overwhelming majority, this amendment has failed. Clapping is not in order. We will now be moving on to discussing the amendment submitted by the delegate of North Korea. Ali Raza will be taking over President Chair for this section of debate. Delegate of North Korea, please go in and explain your amendment.
Delegate of North Korea would like to strike out clause 1, since the delegate believes that nations should have their own system to fight cyber warfare to their own discretion, and there should not be nations having to collaborate and agree upon how best they believe that cyber terrorism has to be countered or tackled. Since democracy is very subjective and different in every single country and part of the world, the delegate of North Korea believes that safety can best be ensured in different manners in different areas, and believes that nations should not organize an agency which would, rather than benefit nations like North Korea, would rather lead to North Korea having to adjust their techniques to wrongful techniques that in their perspective. And the delegate of North Korea would also like to say that citizens' safety has to be enabled in
Delegate of North Korea, you're muted.
You're muted.
My bad.
We can't hear you, Delegate of North Korea.
It was just the end.
The delegate of North Korea, I would like to strike the whole of clause 1, since the delegate believes that instead of having a cyber warfare agency, the delegate believes that it is more important that different states decide on the best way for them to ensure the safety and how to counter cyber terrorism in their country. And this is very subjective. Democracy in itself is subjective, and the delegate of North Korea believes that it is to the discretion of each state to deal with cyber terrorism the way that they believe that cyber terrorism should be dealt with. And it should not be discussed in an agency or in a committee. It should be left to the discretion of each individual state. Chair?
Aliraza.
Chair?
We cannot hear you, bro. Just give him a minute to say. We can hear you now.
Open to any points of information.
And
the delegate has opened herself up to any and all points of to 4 points of information. The delegate of Laos, the delegate of Czech Republic, the delegate of China, and the delegate of Israel. You've been recognized in that order. The delegate of Laos, please rise and state your point.
Does the delegate of North Korea not realize that democracy is merely a superficial concept and that all governments should control what their citizens can and cannot do?
The delegate of North Korea would like to praise the delegate of Laos, and is in full agreement with what the delegate of Laos is stating. Individuals and how they express themselves have to be controlled in order to ensure a safe system within the country. In North Korea, the system is very safe, and individuals are supportive of their government since they they believe that it is controlling their privacy and the rights they have is important to ensure their safety, and the citizens agree upon that and are in full support of their government.
Right to reply.
Sorry, before.
Granted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
All right.
Yes. So then why is the delegate of North Korea in favor of striking this clause when this clause expresses its hopes for nations to basically implement a government organized cyber warfare agency which has governments tell their citizens what they can and cannot do with their cyber security? And the delegate of Laos is very confused as to why the delegate of North Korea would like to strike this clause.
The delegate of North Korea believes that it is to the discretion of each individual state to decide how best to tackle cyber terrorism, and does not think that employing the techniques that other nations within that agency would like to implement would be beneficial for the delegation of North Korea and for other delegations as well.
Thank you, delegate of North Korea. The delegate of Czech Republic.
The delegate of Czech Republic is wondering, what is your definition of democracy? And if we can explain it to the delegate of Czech Republic. And yeah.
Delegate, please refrain from the use of personal pronouns.
Sorry.
The delegate of North Korea believes that democracy is the happiness of the people and the safety that they feel that they have within the country, and their rights to support their government and tell their government that they feel safe and happy within the country, and that the government can promote this in their measures within the country.
Right to reply.
Thank you. Granted, due to interest in the debate.
How would the North Korea provide the systems for cyber warfare for the citizens? Like, what policy does North Korea have for cyber warfare?
First of all, the delegate of North Korea would like to urge the delegate of Czech Republic to do some research on that, since it would be very beneficial for the delegate of Czech Republic, and the delegate of North Korea will obviously respond to the delegate of Czech Republic. So in North Korea, there's a very efficient and effective way of dealing with cyber warfare and cyber terrorism, specifically because internet is only allowed in certain areas or certain agencies and is controlled to enable that citizens are not attacked through the use of internet and social media, and to best protect the different citizens from this cyber warfare.
Thank you, Delegate of North Korea. Delegate of China?
The delegate of China would like to retract this point, as the delegate of Laos asked his point very efficiently.
Thank you, Delegate of China. Can you please lower your hand then? Delegate of Japan?
The delegate of Japan wanted to ask the delegate
Point of
North
personal
Korea.
privilege due to audibility.
Delegate of Japan, please move closer to your camera or speak louder.
The delegate of Japan wants to know what the delegate of North Korea wants to replace the agency, the term agency, with, as for the democratic concerns, as because the agency simply means an organization which is for something. I don't know which other form could be used to replace an agency. Could the delegate of North Korea please example what we could do?
The delegate of North Korea has not fully heard everything that the delegate of Japan has said due to audibility issues. However, the delegate of North Korea believes that they got the point of the delegate of Japan and would like to respond to their ability. The delegate of North Korea proposes to other states that instead of having an agency, they rather decide on how they best want to tackle cyber warfare and cyber attacks to their own discretion, meaning that states can invest as much money in cybersecurity as they would like to, so that states don't have to all invest the same amount, as well as perhaps controlling more the internet and diffusion and the ability of individuals to have access to internet and different computer technologies, so that the citizens by themselves are not harmed and their privacy isn't taken away and infringed upon by any cyber attacks.
Thank you, Delegate of North Korea. We will now be moving on to open debate for or against this motion. If anyone wishes to speak for this motion, please raise your granted.
The delegate has not said their point of information.
Delegate, I'm afraid due to time constraints, we will not be able to grant your point of information. Yes? Yes, Delegate of China, are you going to say something? Okay, we will now be moving on into open debate. Yes?
The delegate of China apologizes. The delegate of China wanted to speak for or against this amendment as a whole, and therefore it raised his hand.
Oh, thank you. I will be calling out the names now. The delegate of Laos, the delegate of China, and the delegate of... Okay, the delegate of Laos, you've been recognized.
Fellow delegates, this amendment is completely useless. The delegate of Laos believes that in the amendment, it is specifically stated that the clause states expresses its hope for nations to organize a government-based cyber warfare agency. The delegate of North Korea clearly did not read this clause, or else the delegate of North Korea would not have been striking out the full clause. The clause clearly states that each nation will come up with a government-based cyber warfare agency, meaning that nations who, much like North Korea, Laos, and China, who have the best form of government policies and do not take democracy and just take democracy as a complete joke, this clause states that nations specifically can organize a government-based cyber warfare agency, meaning that each nation is in control of their own agency, meaning that striking out this clause is not beneficial to North Korea or any of the other countries in this room, because of the fact that if we were to strike out this clause, the UN would be in control of each of our countries, and we do not want that for ourselves, because the delegates in this room, I know, sorry, the delegate apologizes, the delegate of Laos knows, would each individually like to control the people, the citizens, and their governments on their own without the aid of the UN, because the UN should not be controlling any of the delegates' countries. Therefore, the delegate of Laos would like to say that striking out this whole clause is completely useless and taking a step backwards in a move of proper, what is the delegate apologizes, proper elimination of democracy. And if the UN were to take control over all of our government-based activities, then democracy would prevail, and that would not be good for the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. We will now be moving on to debate for this motion. If anyone, do you have, is the delegate open to any points of information?
The delegate is open to 3 points of information.
The delegate has opened herself up to 1 point of information. If there are any such points, please raise your hand. The delegate of Israel is recognized.
Point of personal privilege. Could the delegate, could the chair please restate the names, as there's a problem with audibility at the moment?
Oh, sorry, the delegate of Israel has been recognized for a point of information.
Point of personal privilege due to audibility.
Can they not hear me? Huh?
Your voice keeps getting cut off.
Yeah.
My audio?
Yes,
Yeah.
now it's back
Okay,
to normal.
the delegate of Israel, you've been recognized.
Point of parliamentary inquiry. Was the delegate not open to 3 points of information?
Yes, but due to time constraints, I've made it 1.
Thank you.
Okay, firstly, the delegate of Israel would like to ask the delegate of Laos if they think that if they do not think that collaborating with other nations can actually help help combat the issue of cybersecurity and cyber terrorism, as it can generate data which can be used to create systems for nations to use, which will improve cybersecurity and cyber safety for all nations in the world.
No, the delegate of Laos does not think that collaborating with other governments would be beneficial, because Laos already has the best government in the whole world. And why would the Laos government listen to any other governments? Because any other government's opinions are useless to the Laos government, and therefore collaborating with other countries is just completely like beside the point and useless to any governments. And therefore the delegate of Laos believes that there is no need for collaboration, and that each government should individually come up with their policies for themselves, whether it is ruthless or not.
Request to follow up. I mean, permission to reply.
Granted.
Why does the delegate does not think that other nations at all have better ways to combat cybersecurity or cyber terrorism, and that crossing out this whole clause, does the delegate not believe that crossing out this whole clause is not progressive and does not help this resolution in any sort of way? And if anything, it's only towards this one country, the delegate's own country, and not the protection and the safety of all the nations in the UN?
No, the delegate of Laos does not believe that any other countries can compare to the government of Laos's ideas on cybersecurity, and therefore the delegate of Laos believes that collaborating with other governments would completely just backtrack this whole movement, and therefore the delegate of Laos would like to restate their opinion about crossing out this clause, and believes that Striking out this clause is just not beneficial for any other government because the delegate of Laos truly believes that the Laos government is above all. And while Laos might be a very small country, Laos is just elite compared to any others.
Thank you, the delegate of Laos. We will now be moving into. Oh, would you like to yield the floor to the chair?
The delegate of Laos would actually like to yield the floor to the delegate of China.
Delegate of China, please rise and state your point.
The delegate of China accepts this yield. Thank you to the delegate of Laos for such an amazing speech. The delegate of China would further like to emphasize on the points made by the delegate of Laos and the elite government of the delegate of Laos and China. Even though the delegate of Laos did not mention China in her speech and the elite government of China, this will not be considered, but it's okay. The delegate of China would like to state that the delegate of North Korea is trying to strike out the entire of clause 1, and the delegate of China would like to state that the delegate has not read the clause properly and therefore has no right to strike out the entire clause. The delegate of the main submitter of this resolution has clearly stated that conduct and or assist in the training and exercises covering the focus areas of technology, strategy, and lieu of agencies involved in handling of sensitive data. Delegates. This is simple information. The delegate, the main submitter, clearly states that and or assist in training if required. If required. This means that if any country or government or even a small country like Laos requires it, yet with the supreme government of Laos and the supreme government of China, we will take the aid. We will. And therefore, the delegate urges the House to vote against this amendment as a whole, as it does not make any sense. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of China. Are you open to any points of information?
The delegate has opened himself to one point of information as the delegate realizes that there are time constraints.
Thank you. The delegate of China has opened himself up to one point of information. If anyone has such points, please raise your hands now. The delegate of Poland, you've been recognized.
The delegate of Poland also believes that this should be striked, but for different reasons. And firstly, would like to point out that the delegate of Laos stated that tells citizens what to do. This does not tell citizens what to do. It simply is a way for states to implement ways to safer technology. And it would also, and the delegate of Poland would also like to point out North Korea's claim that nations can use their own cyber technology systems, but the delegate does not seem to be aware that some low development countries do not have systems to fight cyber attacks, and even if they had, even in the future, they will probably not use the money they have for this, and therefore they depend on other nations, which this clause is for. This clause is to unite and have a better relationship, and the delegate of Poland was wondering if the delegate of China is aware of this.
Thank
you, delegate of Poland.
The delegate of China is fully aware of this, and the delegate of China would like to thank the delegate of Poland for making such a point, and therefore the delegate of Poland is supporting the point of the fact that if there is and or assist in training needed, and therefore this amendment should not pass and rather fail. And therefore, the delegate of China urges the House to vote against this amendment as a whole, and finally vote for this resolution as a whole. Thank you.
Motion to extend points of information.
Denied due to time constraints. We will now be moving on to
a motion to go to previous points. No, what is
Objection.
it?
Second.
Second.
Objection. Granted. Granted. We will now be moving on to voting. Please rise and state your objection.
The delegate of North Korea has not been fully understood by the House and would thus like to continue debate and further detail their stance on this amendment.
Delegate of North Korea, due to time constraints, this will not be possible. That motion is not in order. So we will now be moving on to voting procedures for or against this amendment. If you would like to vote for this amendment, please raise your hands now. Two, bro.
Parliamentary inquiry.
Granted.
Or right now we're voting for or against the amendment.
You were voting for the amendment.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Granted.
Is the point of parliamentary inquiry allowed during voting procedures?
Oh, it actually is not. Yeah, that is my bad. So if anyone wishes to vote for this amendment, please raise your hand now. If anyone wishes to vote against this amendment, please raise your hand. Okay. Due to overwhelming majority, this amendment has failed. Clapping is not in order.
Motion to move to previous question.
Objection.
Maya will be returning as president chair.
Second.
Just give her a moment.
Nar, could you please make me co-host again?
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Granted.
The delegate is requesting that Ali Raza gets the chair now.
Sorry?
The delegate would like to request the chairs if Ali Raza could chair now. Ali Raza will be chairing now.
Thank you.
That is good.
Thank you, Delegate of China. Can you guys hear me? Okay, yeah. So delegates will now be moving into open debate time for or against this resolution as a whole. Is there any
point of order? Is there not
please state your point.
Is there not another amendment?
No.
The delegate of Mali submitted an amendment on operative
Delegate,
policy.
due to time constraints, we will not be able to debate all amendments.
No, sorry, delegate.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your point.
Didn't the chair allocate 1 hour for this resolution and it has been 58 minutes?
Yes,
delegate.
Yes, we now have 2 minutes left.
So therefore, motion to move into previous question.
It would be highly appreciated if someone brought up the motion, yes.
Objection.
Are there any objections?
Objection.
Please state your point. Please state your objection.
The delegate would like to speak for this resolution as a whole to conclude it in a majestic way.
Delegates, we will be entertaining one last speaker to speak for or against this this resolution as a whole. If there are any such speakers in the House, please raise your hands now. A delegate of China, you've been recognized.
Honorable Chair, esteemed delegates, the delegate of China urges the House to vote for this resolution as a whole. As a delegate of China, would only like to ask one question. If everybody was stuck in the Saharan desert with one glass of water and some sand particles inside it, would you or would you not drink this glass of water? In this case, the glass is the issue at hand. The water is the solutions, and the sand particles are the minute, very, very minute mistakes in this resolution. Therefore, the delegate would like to ask, would the delegates
laughing is not in order.
The delegate would like to ask if the other delegates would drink this glass of water. Well, obviously you're stuck in the desert and you do not have anything to drink. Therefore, the delegate of China's point is proved and therefore urges the House to vote for this resolution.
Thank you, delegate. We will be taking one point of information. If there are any such points in the House, please raise your hands now. Delegate of Mali, you've been recognized.
As the delegate of the People's Republic of China stated, the minute details within this large glass of water, if that is a correct recount of what the delegate had stated, would not these minute details poison the entire glass? If let's say the sand, right? The sand contains sharp, small rocks that could puncture the inside of the human throat. That only brings a deeper meaning to the delegate of
Delegate of Mali, the sound is not the issue at hand. Please state a relevant point.
And please just state your question directly, as we are very low on time.
Delegates, please be reminded we've already gone past debate time by 1 minute, so we would like to get this concluded with so we can go on to our final resolution.
Would not the minute details slash particles of sand in this large resolution slash glass of water not ruin the entire thing?
Thank you,
Thank you, Delegate of Mali, for your amazing question. The Delegate of China would like to state, Delegate of Mali, again, if you're stuck in a desert, you're about to die, you have one glass of water in front of you. Would you or would you not drink it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No, denied.
Point of inquiry. Is the delegate of China supposed to stick with their country's position on this topic? Because
yes, we have discussed this before. The delegate of China is supposed to stick with his country policy.
Delegates, we have already discussed this, and we're moving into voting procedure for this resolution as a whole. So if there are any delegates who to vote for this resolution, please raise your hands now. For and support. If there are any delegates wishing to vote against this resolution, please raise your hands now. Due to overwhelming majority, this resolution fails. Clapping is not in order.
Abstentions. I forgot.
Delegates will be moving on to our final resolution, which will come up on the screen in a moment.
Delegates, we do have a break at 11:30, so we will be debating until that break, and then after that break, we will continue to debate. Please be reminded that we were leaving 30 minutes at the end for confessions and one more fun activity. So yeah.
The next resolution that will be debated was submitted by the Czech Republic, and it is on the question of preventing the reemergence of the Cold War antagonism.
May the delegate of the Czech Republic start reading out the operative clauses?
Calls for member states that possess nuclear weapons to work towards a nuclear-free world within 50 years. By disarming nuclear weapons and for warheads too, further establishing and encouraging safe methods to reduce nuclear waste and other side effects such as demolition and reprocessing, creating a body that will verify the demolition and the safety of the nuclear weapons. Reducing the nuclear weapons in the world by aiming for a 20% decrease in nuclear weapons in each country every 10 years to once each member state is in around the same rate. Ensure that each country dismantles its nuclear weapons in an equal way to ensure that member states remain confident in their safety and mutual destructions. Continue to a nuclear-free world. Recommends for all member states to create a no-use force policy, where nuclear weapons are appended for option to rising tensions between member states. Ensures that no member states can start a nuclear war between other states, creating an agreement where each member state pledges not to use nuclear weapons within a non-nuclear conflict. Establish a mechanism for correct dialogue between member states in the case of rising tensions to avoid nuclear tensions between countries. In order for member states to pursue good faith negotiations for nuclear disarmament, any member states who breaks the treaty will have to pay a fine whose amount depends on the nature of the crime. expresses its hope that member states will sign the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty as soon as possible to ensure international security and trade. Two, to stop nuclear weapons, to stop testing nuclear weapons. Further invites the member states to attend a peace summit on nuclear weapons that will educate member states on the risk of muscular disruption caused by the nuclear weapons, demonstrates to member states the environmental impact concerning nuclear weapons on the peaceful use of nuclear energy, establishes an open-ended working group to propose proposals to take forward nuclear disarmament talks for the achievement of a nuclear-free world, calls upon all member states with nuclear fragments to select 15 people per country to manage and vote on nuclear scenarios on the given state with equal representation of political, military, and scientific perspectives and an equally weighted votes to oversee any accidental or purposeful nuclear weapons launches as a second member state whose realization to the force is peaceful, hostile, neutral. Have a committee of representatives that consists of current leaders of state, military leaders, the deputy leaders of state, prime ministers, and high-ranking members of the scientific community and other high-ranking officials to ensure that there's no one viewpoint on with making decisions about the nuclear weapons. Sorry, 1 minute. I'm just going to get my opening speech up.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your point.
The delegate of North Korea is wondering whether the resolution that has already been passed on this topic can be referred to or taken into account when addressing this resolution.
No.
Delegate, unfortunately, that is not in order.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your point.
How long is the debate time set for this resolution?
Until 12:30 our time, then there's a break. And then we'll debate again until the last 30 minutes of the conference.
And what about the confession box?
That's
We'll
going to
do
happen
that in the last 30 minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Delegate. The Delegate of the Czech Republic, is your speech ready?
Yes. Good morning to all. Good morning to honorable chairs and all esteemed delegates of the Disarmament Committee. The delegate of the Czech Republic feels like this resolution presents a clear, succinct, and detailed solution that meets the goal of long-term prevention of the real wonders of the Cold War Italiances. This resolution takes into account the environmental aspects, which are the message of reducing nuclear waste, and it decreases the tensions of starting a new Cold War between members. This resolution highlights and stresses the importance of trust between countries and ensures the safety of member states. The Czech Republic feels like this resolution is well done because the Czech Republic believes that no member states will be in a position to use nuclear weapons even in peaceful times. The delegate of Czech Republic hopes for a fruitful debate on this resolution.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the Delegate open to any points of information?
The delegate is open to 3 points of information.
The Delegate has opened herself to 3 points of information. If there are any such points in the House, please raise your hands now. The delegates of the Russian Federation and North Korea, you have been recognized in that order.
Thank you, Delegate, for your speech, but is the delegate not aware that in Clause 1, Subclause B, the UN cannot force a country to do something, and it's just a suggestion, and many countries will most likely not do this?
Yes, the Czech Republic is aware that the UN cannot force people to reduce its nuclear arms, but the Czech Republic highly recommends that each member state reduces its their nuclear weapons.
Right to reply?
Granted.
The delegation of Russia would like to inform. Oh wait, this has to be in a question as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, never mind then. I retract my point of information.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate from North Korea.
Thank you, Chair. Is a delegate of Czech Republic not aware that it is currently, as expressed in a clause 3, subclause B especially, is a delegate of Czech Republic not aware that it is not currently feasible to stop testing nuclear weapons, given that nations like North Korea are being threatened militarily by other nuclear nations in their territory?
The delegate of the Coast Republic does realize that, but the delegate also could also say in subclause 1B, which means that every single person will be reducing his nuclear arms in the same range. So the safety of the member states will be taken into consideration. So the safety will be our top #1 priority.
Right to reply.
Granted.
The delegate of Czech Republic not aware that the delegate of North Korea is referring to military, not nuclear threats made by other nations near the North Korean territory with military.
No, the delegate of Czech Republic was not aware that he meant military and not nuclear weapons. She apologized on her behalf.
Right to reply.
Denied. Delegate, how would you like to yield the floor?
The delegate of Czech Republic uses the floor to China.
Does the delegate of China accept this yield?
The delegate of China does not accept this yield. But
that will not be in order. That'll be in order. Sorry. The chair now has the floor.
Motion to move into unmoderated caucus for 2 minutes.
Objection.
Denied. We are now in open debate time for or against this resolution. If there are any speakers in the House, please, wishing to speak for or against this resolution as a whole, please raise your hands now. The delegate of China, you've been recognized.
The delegate of China had left his hand up, unfortunately, and the delegate would like to apologize to the honorable chair.
Thank you, Delegate Norris. The delegate of North Korea, you've been recognized.
Fellow delegates, the delegate of North Korea is wholeheartedly against this resolution, since it does not take into account that at the moment, nuclear weapons in countries cannot be fully disarmed due to threats being made by different nations. This resolution is not specific enough and does not account for the nations being threatened by one another. And simply saying that nuclear-free world will exist in 50 years is not possible and totally unrealistic. And the delegate of North Korea would like to point out that this resolution is not feasible for the nuclear states which are concerned by nuclear war and by reducing their tensions. The different points being made in this resolution are simply not realistic.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
The delegate has opened herself to any and all points of information. If there are any such points in the House, please raise your hands now. Delegate of China, you've been recognized. And the delegate of Poland, you've been recognized in that order.
Could the delegate of North Korea please state what countries have threatened what countries have threatened them?
The delegate of North Korea would be more than happy to do so and would like to also provide some historical background to the House, since they believe that it's very necessary. In 2018, during the Singapore summit between the United States and North Korea was willing to reduce its nuclear weaponry and decrease its nuclear arsenal. However, the United States has launched military exercises in South Korea being of imminent threat to North Korea, and thus these nations have made North Korea determined to start increasing its nuclear arsenal again as a way to prevent or defend themselves best against these military exercises being led in South Korea.
Thank you, Delegate. The Delegate of Poland. Delegate of Poland.
Yes. If the delegate of North Korea says that North Korea is willing to reduce their weapons, does that mean that they would stop making lithium-6, which is used for tritium and nuclear fission and is directly used in nuclear bombs? And there's proof that North Korea does have these power plants, and there is very high, and is also proof that is used for nuclear weapons. So if North Korea is willing to reduce their weapons, would that also mean that they would immediately stop the use of these power plants?
The delegate of North Korea does not think that the delegate of Poland has understood the point that the delegate of North Korea made. The delegate of North Korea has said that in 2018, the North Korea was willing to reduce its nuclear arsenal. However, is not willing to do so anymore due to threats being made by the United States and South Korea near their territory.
Permission to reply?
Granted.
So does the delegate of North Korea propose that North Korea will continue their building their nuclear arsenal in order to be able to attack the US at some point, and not take in the consideration that it is terrible for the environment, and which is already at risk of global warming, and simply not continue being stubborn and not taking into the consideration into other nations?
The delegate of North Korea would like to say that they do not wish to attack other nations first, as stated by their president Kim Jong-un in 2016. Let the delegate quote, North Korea would not use nuclear weapons first unless aggressive hostile forces use nuclear weapons to invade our sovereignty. North Korea is a peaceful, looking forward to working to peaceful terms with other nations. And as a matter of fact, is only spending $0.6 billion in their nuclear arsenal compared to $35.4 billion by the USA, and even $1 billion by Israel, and thus is spending considerably less on their arsenal, and thus believes that the points that the delegate of Poland is making against the delegate of North Korea should be rather oriented towards the nations that are spending much more on their nuclear arsenals yearly.
Permission to reply?
Denied. How would the delegate like to yield the floor?
The delegate would like to yield the floor to Russia.
To who?
The Russian Federation.
Does the Russian Federation accept this yield?
No, the Russian Federation does not, sorry.
That will not be in order. So the chair once again has the floor. The floor is now open for any delegates wishing to speak for or against this resolution as a whole. If there are any such speakers wishing to take the floor, please raise your hands now.
Point of order.
Please state your point.
The delegation of Russia submitted an amendment.
We will be moving on to the amendment submitted by the delegation of North Korea, and then we will come to the delegates' amendment. So may the delegation of North Korea please give a speech for her amendment.
Thank you, Chair. As stated by the delegate of North Korea previously, while speaking against this resolution as a whole, the delegate of North Korea has striked out clause 3. Since in clause 3b specifically, it asks of nuclear states to stop testing nuclear weapons. However, nuclear weaponry can be seen as a means of defense due to threats being made by other nations. And thus the delegate of North Korea, although the delegate and the country that the delegate represents only seeks not to have to intervene and to use these weaponry, believes that nuclear weapons should continue to be tested due to different threats being made specifically by Western states.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
The delegate has opened herself to any and all points of information. If there are any such in the House, please raise your hands now. The delegate of the Russian Federation, the United States of America, yeah, you've been recognized in that order.
Does the delegation of North Korea not agree that if nuclear bomb tests are being done in the country of like the nuclear, if the nuclear bombs are being tested in the same country as the owner of the nuclear bomb, shouldn't it be allowed?
The delegate of North Korea has not fully understood the question of the Russian Federation.
Would the delegate like for the Russian Federation to repeat her question?
Yes.
May the Russian Federation please repeat or rephrase their question?
Does North Korea not agree that the UN should not have any control of what a country does with nuclear bombs in their country?
No, the delegate of North Korea is not in full agreement with that, since the delegate would like to see different strategies being implemented by the UN, specifically to improve current systems, specifically the Western systems, since the delegate believes that the Solar 30 strategy should not be implemented. The first use of nuclear weapons for states should also be implemented. And thus the delegate of North Korea believes that to some extent the UN should intervene with nuclear weapon states. However, the UN cannot enforce states and force states to stop completely testing nuclear weapons, since this is not currently feasible when seeing our actual and current world.
Thank you. The delegate of the USA.
Hello, our point has been made by the delegate of Russian Federation.
Thank you. How would the delegate of North Korea like to yield the floor?
Delegate of North Korea would like to ask again whether the delegate of Russia would like to take the floor.
Does the delegate of Russia accept his yield?
No, no, the delegation does not. I'm sorry.
So we will now be moving, the chair now has the floor. We will now be moving to close debate time for this amendment. If there are any speakers wishing to speak for this amendment, please raise your hands now.
Motion to move to previous question.
Second.
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 We will now be moving into the previous question. So we will now be moving into debate, close debate time against this amendment. If there are any such speakers wishing to speak against this amendment, please raise your hands now.
Motion to move into voting procedure.
Second.
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 Seeing as there are no objections, we will now be moving to voting procedure for this amendment.
Point of order to the chair. Point of order to the chair. Isn't there no motion to move into voting procedures? Instead, you're meant to say motion to move into previous question.
Yes, sir, the chair stands corrected. We will now be moving into, are there any motions to move into the previous question?
Motion to move to previous question.
Second.
Any objections? Seeing as there are no objections, we'll now be moving to voting procedure for this amendment. If there are any delegates wishing to vote in favor of this amendment, please raise your hands now. All delegates wishing to vote against. Due to overwhelming majority, this amendment fails. Clapping is not in order. We will now be moving into the amendment submitted by the delegate of Russia. Also, delegates, we have 5 minutes, so once those 5 minutes are up, someone just remind me, and we'll be going into a 15-minute break. So may the delegate of Russia please proceed with her speech for her amendment.
The delegation of Russia believes that this clause is extremely useless because Russia believes that it's trying to bring people back to the past. There is developing technology in the world. In World War I, the world believed that the world did not see what was coming. And it is totally, the clause 1 will not work because there are so many states that are so unwilling to give up their sense of protection that a nuclear bomb has. So the delegation of Russia believes that all states should vote for striking clause 1.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
1.
The delegate has opened herself to 1 point of information. If there is a point of information, is there any delegates wishing to ask a point of information, please raise your hands now. The delegate of the USA, you've been recognized.
Thank you, delegate, for your speech. However, is the delegate of the Russian Federation aware of the fact that if this clause, if we strike out this clause, this resolution will automatically fail?
The delegation of Russia is aware of that.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your points.
Given that clause 3 the amendment made to clause 3 has failed, if the clause 1 was striked out, there would be 4 clauses left, and if the delegate of North Korea is not mistaken, a resolution can only fail when it's less than 4 clauses. Thus, this resolution would not fail if the amendment passed.
Yes, that is what we said yesterday. So if the
Delegates,
resolution...
please be reminded that if a resolution has less than 4 clauses, it fails. However, it can have 4 clauses.
Exactly.
Oh, my bad.
Okay, how would the delegate of the Russian Federation like to yield the floor?
The Russian Federation yields the floor back to the chair.
Motion to move to previous question.
Second.
Objection.
Please state your objection.
The delegate of North Korea does not believe that this amendment has seen enough debate, and that there has not been both the pro and con sides of this amendment that have been discussed.
Point of
The
parliamentary
deputy chair
inquiry.
agrees with the delegate of North Korea, and considering that we will only finish 30 minutes before 1:30 today, and our break is in 2 minutes. After the break, delegates should partake in more debate in this on this amendment.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your points.
This delegate believes that motion to move to previous question means to move into time against this amendment and skipping time for the amendment. So the delegate would like to restate a motion to move to previous question.
Objection.
Delegate, due to the delegate of North Korea, the chair is pretty sure the delegate of North Korea has a speech for this amendment. So we will be entertaining, actually we have a minute left.
Motion to move into unmoderated caucus for 1 minute so that the chair can charge his AirPods.
Granted, and then delegates will have a break until 45. So you'll have 15 minutes. Please just stay on the call, mute yourselves, and turn your cameras off, but be back by 45 or in 15 minutes, whatever your time zone is.
Are we in break? Are we in break?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay, delegates, please make your way back to the conference and switch on your cameras and microphones, please. Okay, so we'll just wait a couple of more, just another minute for everyone to settle, and then I'll continue with the roll call. Okay, we will now proceed with roll call. Please answer by saying present and voting. Delegate of Australia.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Brazil.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Cameroon.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Canada.
Present and voting.
Delegate of China.
Present and voting.
Delegate of DRC.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Ecuador. Delegate of Ethiopia.
Present.
Delegate of French Guiana. Delegate of Gambia.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Indonesia.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Mexico. Delegate of Mexico. Delegate of Madagascar.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Malaysia.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Norway. Delegate of Norway.
Present and voting.
Delegate of New Zealand.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Portugal.
Present and voting.
Delegate of South Africa. Delegate of South Africa. Delegate of Sweden.
Present and voting.
Excuse
Delegate
me.
of, yes.
The delegate of South Africa is having some internet issues.
Okay. Delegate of Tanzania.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Thailand.
Present and voting.
Delegate of United Kingdom.
Present.
Delegate of the USA.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Vietnam.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Mexico. Delegate of Mexico.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Ecuador. We're now back in session. Are there any delegates wishing to speak for this resolution?
Sorry to interrupt, Chair, but the delegate of Australia didn't finish asking the right of reply.
Delegate of Australia, do you still want a right to reply?
It's all right, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other delegates that had any previous points of information that have not had the opportunity to ask?
Point of information to the chair.
Yes, delegate.
Are we going to move into is the House going to move into this amendment, voting for or against this amendment, or debating?
We're going to start talking about amendments. I just want to know if anybody wants to talk for the resolution first. Delegate of Norway, you have the floor.
As a delegate of Norway, I'd like to clear up a few misconceptions that I've heard about this, as I'm as the delegate of Norway is a co-submitter on this resolution. Firstly, someone mentioned how power plants do not constitute green energy. However, the definition of a power plant is an engine or other apparatus which provides power for a machine, building, etc. So by definition, anything that provides power is a power plant, such as a solar energy plant, such as hydropower. It's literally called a hydropower plant. So that point was quite redundant. And again, someone mentioned that 3 and 4 contradict. I'd like to reiterate on the delegate of Madagascar's point that question 4 specifically states poverty-stricken African nations, meaning that poor economies, meaning that cannot afford to provide for themselves. Whereas clause 3 states increasing trade activity to strengthen those very economies. So therefore, the African nations will no longer be poverty-stricken and will no longer require outside green energy.
Thank you, delegate. Are you open to any points of information?
Any and all?
Are there any points of information at this time in the room?
Point of information to the chair.
Please rise and state your point.
Sorry, the admin sent chat a message in the chat, the link, but it's restricted. Is it possible if she can open it up?
I'm just fixing it now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Delegate of Malaysia, delegate of Mexico, and delegate of New Zealand, you have been recognized.
Can Norway elaborate on the practicality of transporting the green energy sources, and how will that be done in a way that is economically smart and is practical as well?
No comments.
Right of reply?
Granted.
Can the delegate of Norway elaborate, especially considering that the history of colonization in Africa, how he expects that Norway would do, or what Norway would encourage African governments to do if there is civil unrest between the people about this further involvement and economic involvement of other countries, especially considering Western countries?
The delegate of Norway believes that there won't be much civil unrest, as the West won't be inherently coming into the country. It's more simply providing the funding and the infrastructure, as clause, I believe, clause 6 states that the workers who will be working on the plants will be African workers. So the only Western influence is really the funding and educating the workers to be able to create the infrastructure themselves. So I do not believe there will be, so the delegate of Norway does not believe there will be much civil unrest.
Thank you.
Delegate of, oh wait, sorry, can you repeat the delegate of, Chair, delegate of Portugal, right? No. Delegate of,
Norway.
Norway. Okay, sorry. Delegate of Norway. Doesn't delegate believe that instead of writing creating green energy producing power plants, they should precise which power plants, because in terms of power plants, there are nuclear power plants, there are hydroelectric power plants.
Objection. The delegate of Norway has already talked about power plants, and coming from the delegate that said warm age, we're not gonna take your advice.
A point of information to the chair.
There
Why is
has
the
been a
delegate of
number of
Madagascar directly speaking to the delegate of Mexico?
There has been a number of infractions that have been committed by the delegate of Madagascar. I'm gonna go to them very quickly. First, delegate, you're not allowed to speak directly to a delegate while they're speaking unless it's through me. Secondly, the delegate of you had yield the floor back to the chair and not to the delegate of Norway. Therefore, you cannot speak as a unity. And third, please let the delegate of Mexico finish his point. Thank you.
Apologies.
Thank you. So the delegate of Mexico was stating that the power plant should be precise which ones, because the power plants can be mistaken with nuclear power plants, coal-fired power plants that are not renewable energies and are not green energies. Doesn't delegate of Norway agree?
The delegate of Norway is completely for our resolution and would be open to any amendments that we could offer.
Okay. Right to reply? Actually, point of information to chair.
Yes.
Can a friendly amendment be given to, for example, add a bit more information to a clause? Like,
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Could the next delegate please state their point of information? Okay. Delegate of China, delegate of Vietnam, delegate of Sweden, of Cameroon, Ethiopia, you have all been recognized.
Recognized for?
To ask a point of information to the delegate of Norway.
Okay, so my question, the question that the delegate of China has for the delegate of Norway is to how do they plan on incorporating developed countries to initiate development projects in Africa, as clause 6 was extremely vague. Furthermore, how do they plan on gaining jurisdiction over these areas, and what measures will be put into place to ensure that there is no exploitation of resources? And furthermore, the power plant which they propose under the resolution, will this power plant be owned by companies from abroad or be given over to the country which it is based in?
The delegate of Norway would like to state that I believe clause 7, speaking about resource mapping, explains how outside investors will be made aware of the opportunities that are in Africa. And on your point about who will own the power plants, I believe it'll be joint ownership. As will be created, it'll be owned by an outside investor as well as the government of the country wherein the power plant is built. The land will be obtained as it'll be a collaborative effort between the government of the country who own the land. So there will be land available.
Right to reply.
Sorry, I was muted. Denied due to time constraints. Please may the next delegate state his point of information.
The delegate's point of information has already been answered.
Could the next delegate state another point of information?
The delegate of Sweden
did not request to state a point of information, but however to speak for this resolution.
Which delegate?
The delegate of Sweden.
Sweden. Are there any delegates wishing to state a point of information? If so, please raise your.
Motion to extend points of information.
Delegate of Mexico, I just asked if any delegation had a point of information. Could you please raise your hand?
Okay.
Delegates of Gambia and Mexico, you have been recognized, and this will be the last point of information for the delegate of Norway, as we should not overwhelm him, and pass on to amendments. Thank you.
Can the delegate of Norway please elaborate on how he suggests to ensure that African nations do not become exploited?
The delegate of Norway suggests that the government take initiative in the projects with outside collaborators, instead of simply allowing the outside collaborators to do whatever they please. Essentially, the African governments would have to be watchful and aware of everything that's going on so as not to allow exploitation, essentially.
Thank you.
The delegate of Mexico had a question for now over 2 days and hasn't received this question. Maybe the delegate of Norway can answer it. The delegate of Mexico would like to ask countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, Central African Republic, and countries in that area, they are surrounded by tropical forests and do not have that much space except if they cut down trees. Does the delegate of Norway know any kind of renewable energy that could be used in those countries?
The delegate of Norway would have to admit that not much could be done in those countries, perhaps hydroelectric power using the power of rivers, but what could be greater would be a collaboration with a country with little space and another country which has slightly lower funding, to create a shared power plant which would provide energy for both countries, as well as outside investor. That's all the delegate of Norway could suggest for such a scenario.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, delegates. We will now be moving to delegates wishing to make statements against this resolution as a whole. If there are any such statements in the room, please raise your hand now.
A point of information to the chair.
Yes.
The delegate of Norway believes the delegate of Sweden was acknowledged to give for the resolution as a whole.
Does the delegate of Sweden still wish to?
Yes, please. Thank you, delegate of Norway.
Thank you. Delegate of Sweden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. As one of the co-submitters of this resolution, the delegate of Sweden believes that the priority of this resolution, or one of the priorities, is to invest time and funding into the education in relation to green energy sources in Africa, targeting the general population of these countries, as sharing a common vision with scientifically supported data is the foundation of this concept, because as soon as the people of these African nations are educated on the benefits of green energy sources, they can proceed to lead the movement in Africa, as explained in Clause 2.
Thank you, delegate. Are you open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Due to time constraint, the delegates will only allow 2 points of information. Are there any such points of information in the room? Please raise your hand now. Delegate of Mexico and the delegate of Vietnam, you've been recognized.
Although the delegate of Mexico believes this resolution does have good ideas, the delegate of Mexico sees this resolution as not developed enough. For example, clause 6, it explains, I quote, it explains that calls upon developed countries to take advantage of Africa's rich natural resources. If there are no measures to make sure that the international countries do not exploit these resources and exploit these countries, this could be very dangerous and could sink the resolution. And considering that there are no sub clauses explaining that international countries cannot exploit or the measures that could be taken, delegate of Mexico believes that this resolution cannot hold. Doesn't delegate of Sweden agree?
Sorry, point of personal point of personal privilege. Could the delegate please repeat your question?
The delegate was of Mexico was explaining that although the resolution has good ideas, it's not developed enough, meaning the ideas are not developed enough. For example, in clause 6, where it says that international countries can help African countries in terms of gathering resources and creating power plants, but there are no sub clauses or sub clauses explaining how measures can be taken to prevent this exploitation of African lands. This is why the delegate believes that this resolution should be more elaborated before being accepted. Doesn't the delegate of Sweden agree?
The delegate of Sweden does agree that clause 6, as the delegate of Mexico brought up, could be more elaborated. However, the delegate does not have a solution at the moment. Does the delegate of Mexico have any suggestions on how this could be elaborated?
Right to reply.
Denied due to time constraints. We will now be moving to amendments. The first amendment being to strike clause 4 as a whole. Are there any delegates wishing to speak for this amendment?
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I have a slight concern as it is currently 12:09 and the opening ceremony is set to begin at 12:40, therefore giving us about 30 minutes. Would it be relevant to ask the delegates to either whether they want to either vote on this resolution now and move on to the next one, or instead focus on this one and forget about the other one?
Focus on this one.
Yeah, focus on this one.
Focus on this one.
Points of information to the chair.
Yes.
Are the confession box gonna be read?
Yeah, there needs to be time for that too. All right,
Yeah.
so what we're gonna do, unfortunately, and it seems the other resolution hasn't been accepted by the correction panel yet. So we'll be focusing on this resolution for now, and then we'll move on to the confession box before going into the closing ceremony. So that's the plan for today, guys. Thank you. Let's go back to debate now.
A point of information to the chair.
Please rise and say your point.
Who was this amendment submitted by?
Let me show it to you guys. It was by Malaysia.
Not the resolution, the amendment.
The amendment. Sorry, the amendment was submitted by the delegation of Australia.
That's not delegation amendment. There's more to the bottom. To amend clause 3.
The delegate also mentioned to strike clause 4.
Could the delegate speak about the amendment?
The delegate would like to retract?
No, could the delegate give a statement about the amendment before it's debated upon?
Yes, delegate, you have the floor.
Thank you. The delegate of Australia believes that conciseness and precision is an essential part of all resolutions in order for countries and their governments to understand the information properly, which is why the delegation of Australia believes that it's better to have one clause which directly and in a concise manner asks states essentially all the aid or any all the requests they have for other developed countries, which is how clause 3, if scroll to the bottom, would state the increase would merge clause 3 and 4 essentially and state how trade activity would work, which is from the original clause 3, and then including clause 4's statement, which is when Africa would ask developed countries for small portions of its green power to poverty-stricken African countries.
Is delegate open to any points of information?
3 points of information.
How many?
3.
The delegate will allow 3 points of information. If there are such points of information on the floor, please raise your hand. Delegate of Portugal, delegate of Norway, and the delegate of Mexico, you have been recognized.
Points of information to the chair.
Please address your point of information.
The delegate forgot to lower his hand. Delegate does not have a point of information.
Okay.
Apologies.
Delegate of Norway, you have put your hand down. Does this mean you don't have a point of information?
Delegate of Norway does have a point of information.
Okay. Delegate of Portugal, you have the floor.
The delegate of Portugal would like to ask the delegate of Australia to elaborate further on how, in her amendments, countries would supply and the criteria that will be used for the giving end, which countries will be considered eligible to give energy to these African nations, whether it would be based on the overall amount of energy or on the amount of energy that is possible to be given without impacting the nation. And also what criteria will be used for those countries that are eligible to receive this energy.
Okay, delegation of Australia appreciates this point as it's important to clarify the precise details. Delegate of Australia believes that the criteria to qualify which countries could be able to give the green power would be there would be a certain threshold there will be certain thresholds for how much green power these countries have. For example, Norway, Germany, China, and the United States of America. They would have to pass that threshold to be able to give aid. Secondly, to answer your question, the countries who would be able to receive this would have to also have a threshold about how much they can sustain by themselves if they are not able to provide as many resources from themselves, which would be evident from what the policies and the government say from for those African countries. Then they would apply for getting aid from those countries. And the delegation believes that's all the delegate asked.
Right to reply.
Granted.
Does the delegate of Australia not believe that it is more beneficial for these nations to help in the building of power stations rather than to waste time and money in trying to transport small amounts of energy over long distances?
The delegate of Australia believes that as much aid can be given, as much aid as possible should be given from other countries. This clause is just to specify a few of the things that African countries expect from developing countries, as Africa is trying to take a bigger step into using renewable sources and a bigger step into developing as a continent, which is why this clause is just an idea for other developed countries to just chip in and help to ensure that this continent is developing in the right manner. Although if any details are to be edited, then the delegate would suggest amendments to the second degree to change the precise details according to other country policies.
The delegate of Norway would like to commend the delegate of Australia on adding such a strong amendment, as the delegate of Norway believes that this strengthens the resolution as a whole. Would the delegate of Australia agree?
Yes, the delegate of Australia thanks the delegate of Norway for appreciating this and agrees. Delegate of Australia yields the floor to the chair.
Thank you, delegate.
Due to time constraints, we will not be moving into arguments against this amendment as a whole. If there are any such arguments, please raise your virtual hand now. The chair would advise delegates to possibly move to previous question.
Motion to move
Second.
to previous question.
Second.
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 Thank you. It is in order. As such, we will not be moving to voting for this amendment and not the resolution as a whole. If you could all please put your hands down for now. Thank you. All right. This is now the vote for.
Chair, I have a question.
Please rise and state your point of information.
The question that the delegate of Madagascar has is, what are we doing like after voting for the resolution? Is it reading the confessions?
After voting for resolution, as we have a limited time, we will then move on to the confessional box. And after this, we will finish off with a couple notes before going to the, another Zoom meeting.
Will all confessions be read?
Excuse me, delegate?
Will all confessions be read?
All confessions will be read.
Okay.
Anyhow, any delegate wishing to vote for this amendment and not the resolution, yet, please raise your virtual hand now. This is a vote for the amendment. 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 13. Thank you, delegates. Please lower your hands now. All delegates wishing to vote, delegates, please lower your hands first. Thank you. All delegates wishing to vote against this amendment, please raise your virtual hand now. As there is an overwhelming majority, this amendment has passed. Clapping is not in order. The House will now be moving to the final points for or against this resolution as a whole. If there are any such points, please raise your virtual hand now. Delegate of Tanzania, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. So overall, the delegate of Tanzania believes that there are many good points have been made in this resolution. However, the clause 3 and 4, which were removed, the delegate of Tanzania did not agree with, but since they've been removed, the delegate of Tanzania agrees with this resolution as a whole.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Due to time constraints, delegate has opened himself up to 2 points of information.
The delegate of Madagascar also has.
Sorry, delegate. This will be looked into in a second. Due to time constraints, however, delegate of Tanzania has opened himself up to 2 points of information. If there are any such points, please raise your virtual hand now. Delegate of Madagascar, delegate of China, you have been recognized in that order.
The delegate of Madagascar agrees with what delegate of Tanzania said. The delegate of Madagascar believes that delegate of Australia did not provide enough solutions and instead just acted irrationally and removed 3 clauses instead of actually providing better solutions. Thank you.
Could a delegate please rephrase the point of information in the question form?
The delegate of Madagascar agrees with what the delegate of Tanzania said. And what would the delegate, if the delegate were to speak for Australia, what suggestions would the delegate make for the clauses that were removed?
The delegate of Tanzania suggests that in place of clause 4, where it is suggested that more developed countries, I believe it's, yeah, more developed countries give energy to less developed countries. I would suggest instead those more developed countries fund energy projects in the less developed countries.
Delegates, please refrain from using personal pronouns. Could the next delegate please state their point of information?
Does the delegate of Tanzania really believe that this resolution is concrete enough to bring about substantial change through the solutions proposed by this resolution?
Yes, the delegate of China believes that it is not very concrete. However, good points were raised, and if this resolution could be further elaborated on, I believe the delegate of Tanzania believes it would be very helpful.
Thank you, delegate. Does delegate yield the floor back to the chair?
So yielded.
Time for or against the resolution as a whole has elapsed, and as such, the House will now be moving to voting procedures. Admins, please suspend note passing. And all delegates, please lower your hands or reactions if there are any. Any delegates wishing to vote for this resolution as a whole, please raise your virtual hand now. One, 2, 3, 10. All right, please now lower your virtual hands. Thank you, delegates. Any delegates wishing to vote against this resolution as a whole, please raise your virtual hands now. Any delegates wishing to abstain? Sorry, first of all, delegates, please lower your virtual hands. Any delegates wishing to abstain, please raise your virtual hand now.
Point of information to the chair.
Please rise and state your point of information.
What does it mean if a delegate abstains a resolution?
Abstaining means that the delegate wishes not to vote on the resolution as a whole.
Okay.
With 10 votes for, 8 votes against, and 1 abstaining vote, the resolution passes. Clapping is in order. Thank you, delegates. We have now concluded open debate, and as we have 15 minutes left before the closing ceremony officially begins, we will now be moving to a 15 minutes unmoderated caucus where we shall read the confessions and also have some final notes at the end.
Can I?
About the ceremony, do we have to join on a different link or something?
Actually,
it's
Yasmin,
yeah, it's basically on the website. It's under the tab ceremonies, and then you should see closing ceremonies. And also, we should probably stop recording on YouTube if we're gonna do the confessions.
I'll do it now.
Yeah, perhaps recording